4 seconds to go. Missed free throw. Ford for the rebound. Here's Pritchard. He loves these. Puts it up half court of the buzzer. Bang!
The Celtics waltzed to their first championship in 16 years, with Jaylen Brown winning a well-earned Finals MVP over Jason Tatum. But this team didn't post the 5th best point differential of all time because of the Jays. They posted the 5th best point differential of all time because they might be the most well-balanced ensemble team in NBA history. Most championship teams are powered by a superstar, or sometimes multiple superstars. But the ensembles are collections of stars where one player doesn't really stand out from the others, and multiple players could be argued as the MVP of any given series. If we use an economic measure of equality known as the Gini coefficient, we can take an impact metric and compare how equal the top 5 players on championship teams are, where 0 is a perfectly equal team where everyone brings the same value, and 1 is a lopsided team where a single player does all the heavy lifting. Using this measure, the most top-heavy title winner since the ABA merger is the 2020 Lakers. LeBron and Anthony Davis formed a two-headed monster in the playoffs. And the most balanced teams are legendary ensemble squads like the 1989 Pistons, the 2004 Pistons, and the 14 Spurs. Those last 2 teams were the gold standard of equality, with a Gini coefficient of 0.11 because their 5th best player wasn't that much worse in the playoffs than their best player. But the Celtics just set a new standard of equality, with 5 starters posting nearly identical box score impact in the regular season and the playoffs. This clinching game was a perfect illustration of what makes Boston such an egalitarian team and more than the sum of its parts. Right out of the gate, they started with Brown glued to Luka Doncic, overplaying him and denying any easy pass, and after this adventure just to get him the ball, Jaylen slides with him well, and it turns into a contested step back. Here it is again, with Brown out near half court to take away Luka. He briefly loses him, but a contested catch-and-shoot 3 isn't Doncic's game. And denying him the ball means that Dallas runs offense through someone else. So Kyrie Irving goes after Sam Hauser, but settles for a quick mid-ranger. Jaylen was also picking him up in the backcourt and hounding him around screens. And after multiple picks to break free here, he hustles back alongside Luka, who foul hunts into a tough runner. And this one's even more impressive, just stalking Doncic around his S-court as he brings the ball up. Then he shuts off any drive idea. They end up trapping him on the sideline, and Brown stays stuck to him, so that's it for Luka's possession. The Celtics help off the injured Maxi Kleber, and it's another stop.
If Luka give it up, I'm not letting him get it back. Yep. You know what I mean? If you want to get the ball, bring it up yourself. Exactly.
So when Luka grew tired of all this harassment, he just gave it up. Brown, true to his word, denied him the ball. Then he denies Kyrie on the switch. That forces PJ Washington to run offense. Brown strips him on the dig. Derek White face plants for the ball. Horford's on the ground. Jaylen comes flying out of there and then streaks by Doncic for a layup. A minute later, it's the same denial from Brown. Washington tries it again and Tatum just rips him, and then he's off to the races and plows through Luka for the finish. And this is just unrelenting, with Brown right back to hounding Doncic full court, and he did a great job defending Luka throughout this series, and they were just daring Kleber to shoot with that shoulder. Notice how Brown doesn't just concede the switch that Luka is trying to hunt. So he goes after Hauser, but Brown fights through and then strips him from behind. Drew Holiday flies to the floor, so Doncic tries to no-look it to a teammate, but unfortunately he's standing out of bounds, and that's one of 7 Luka turnovers. Holiday also got in on this action, picking up Doncic in the backcourt and then staying with him on the drive, then he doesn't bite on Luka's up fake, and that's not an easy fade. And just like Brown, he wouldn't concede the switch Luka wanted, fighting around and through multiple screens here, which leads to another near turnover as Hauser knocks it out of bounds. Dallas was working hard to force Kristaps Porzingis into the pick and roll with Luka, but Drew just refuses to be screened and gets all the way back in front of the ball, so they can't really attack Porzingis, and Boston was pretty happy to let Josh Green shoot above the break threes. This time Brown's denying Luka, so he's taken out of the play. Then Drew gives Kyrie the treatment, stonewalling him on this first screening action before White switches and the ball never breaks the three-point line. And Holiday made Irving's life miserable throughout much of this series, reduxing what he's done to Damian Lillard and so many others by shutting off drives, denying catches off the ball, and generally hounding opponents into a diet of turnovers and difficult shots. Kyrie made an amazing one there, but here he's trying to isolate against Tatum, and Drew just materializes to take his lunch, and then the Celtics get out in transition again and turn their defense into offense. Holiday was everywhere this game. Luka switches onto him, so he immediately sprints up to set a screen for Brown, so Doncic is behind the play. And then he goes around the outside of his man, only to cut back at the last second and steal an offensive rebound. And he went full Josh Hart in this game, crashing from the outside to grab a bunch of offensive boards, which helped generate 15 more true shot attempts for the Celtics than the Mavs, and set up second chances like this where Tatum has a bunch of space to attack in isolation. Drew was active as a roll man in this game, repeatedly slipping behind Doncic and then hurting the Mavs on that short roll catch. And that brings us to Joe Mazzulla's subtle but brilliant adjustments this game. When they attacked Luka, Holiday would slip the screen into space, and so Luka's expecting a switch. Kyrie never feels a screen, so he doesn't switch, and the result is an easy Holiday layup. The Celtics also tweaked their spacing, playing with their center in the corner more, so when they hunt Luka here, Drew just touches and rolls inside Irving. When the ball swung around to White, he can attack the closeout, and they end up with free throws. Here's the first play of the game. Notice Al Horford remind Brown to fill that strong side corner, and that leaves Doncic alone on the other side when they reverse the ball. Holiday touches and rolls, and this is exactly how you draw it up, with Horford filling in that far side corner, so the Dallas big man has to worry about him, and that's either going to be a wide open three or a Holiday layup. Boston really wanted to stretch Dallas's shot blockers by pulling them into the pick and roll action and playing from there. Tatum isolates this time right into Doncic. Drew makes a brilliant little cut behind on the baseline, and that's another layup. And this allows them to pull the shot blocker away from the rim, then hunt Doncic in pick and roll, with Dallas's center forced to stay on the outside. Tatum collapses the defense, and that's a nice pass for the wide open triple. And on this one, they first bring Derek Lively into the action, then Holiday drags Doncic up into the play, and Jason goes before the screen, which catches Lively off guard and leads to an and one. So after Dallas spent a ton of time keeping one of their big centers near the rim in Game 4, Boston surgically tugged and pulled those bigs out of the paint in Game 5 to make it easier to finish. And if there's one stat that sums up this series, it might be the number of shots defended near the hoop by Lively and Gafford, who felt like brick walls standing in front of the basket in the first 3 rounds, but against Boston were often pulled out of the way and sometimes played off the floor. I love this counter in the second quarter with Doncic on the bench. They pull the center out to Tatum first. Dallas doesn't want Kyrie on Horford, so they switch off the corner, but the Celtics then screen with that corner man, only to fake the screen and pop wide open, and that is just filthy. The next time down, they run the exact same play. This time it's defended much better, so Tatum drives, forces help, and plan B is another Brown 3. Tatum's decision-making and playmaking were a huge part of orchestrating this dance for the Celtics, and this was probably the best playmaking series of Brown's career, making good decisions to punish help defenders. This is vintage Celtics. Tatum spaces lively out of the paint so Brown can isolate against the Matador. He patiently waits to make a move, and then at the last second, jump passes to an open shooter, and White drains a 3 despite breaking his tooth on the floor on the prior play. And this time Brown picks on Luka again, backs up to build steam, and then dimes up Porzingis from the corner. Boston put Doncic in 17 pick and rolls per game, according to Second Spectrum, more than any other team and nearly twice as many as Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. So they basically removed Dallas's biggest defensive strength by stretching out those shot blockers, just so they could expose Dallas's biggest defensive weakness by attacking Doncic. Of course, the Celtics are really smart and versatile on defense too, and we saw some vintage possessions in this game, staying with cutters, switching seamlessly, then helping exactly when needed, making plays in the passing lane, and then doing little things like Holiday closing to take away the corner pass so a weak shooter has to launch. Everyone on the team knows the scouting report and opponent tendencies, like Holiday not recovering to the weaker shooter here, or everyone staying down on Luka's up fakes all series long, or White knowing the game plan on this play by stunting toward Derrick Jones Jr., but making sure Kyrie isn't open and the defense is never put in rotation. White gives Boston another multifaceted defender in the backcourt next to Holiday. These dudes just terrorize people. And he's one of the best shot-blocking guards of all time, leading the Celtics in blocks during their playoff run by making all kinds of plays like this near the basket. He's also incredibly quick tracking the ball, out-anticipating everyone on the floor, and he grabbed 4 offensive rebounds in this game too, which means Boston has one of the coolest, funkiest backcourts in NBA history that probably needs a tag team nickname like the Cookie Monsters or the Swish Army Knives, or anything that captures how quietly devastating but uniquely versatile they are as a duo. Remember, this is a team that posted the best raw offensive efficiency ever and the 4th best offensive rating relative to league average in NBA history. Their playoff offense wasn't quite as strong, although some of that was because Porzingis missed most of their postseason run. And KP gives them a seriously deep spacing threat to play 5 out or pick and pop, and he can punish mismatches if you switch a smaller player onto him in the pick and roll. Their entire rotation is filled with high-volume three-point shooters who make at least 35% from long range, and Coach Mazulla has drilled historically great spacing principles into this veteran team to maximize its offensive talent. So instead, the Celtics probably authored more beautiful game possessions this year than any other team because of how well they move, cut, shoot, and how willing they are to constantly make the next pass and find better and better shots. So yes, they played easy competition, but they also made mincemeat of that competition. Their efficiency wasn't great in this series, but they also never really had a good shooting game. And the thing is, they didn't ever need it. They're just too good across the board. And while Tatum is their best overall player and one of the league's best two-way players, this team is so good because of the interaction between the Jays, White, Holiday, Porzingis, Horford, the coaching of Joe Mazulla, and even their bench players. And the 2024 Boston Celtics are the latest in a line of ensemble champions that don't need the best player in the series to win because they're simply the best team. To support this channel, check out patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. That's the best way to support us and the Thinking Basketball podcast. We have additional content and a ton of stats throughout the season and historically. Thanks so much for your support and viewership throughout this season. We really appreciate it and hope that you have enjoyed our coverage. Otherwise, that is it for 2024. Congratulations to the Celtics on their 18th championship, and wherever you are watching, especially in Boston, I hope you are having a great day.